Hi, welcome to another webinar. In this webinar, we're going to talk about different types of cables that we use in CCTV application. I'm Ferdinand Joseph, a principal tutor at Cube Training. Cube Training is approved by NCFE, and we've been in the business for the last 10 years. We provide electronic security installation courses. If you need further information about us, you could visit our website at www.cctvdvrsystem.co.uk. Also, you can visit our online portal, which is www.learninstallation.co.uk. What are the different types of cables used in CCTV application? There are 3 different types of cables mainly used in CCTV applications. The first one is the coax cable. The second one is the Ethernet cables or twisted pairs. And the third one is optical fiber or fiber optic cable. Coax cable. There are different types of coax cable. The one that we use for CCTV installation is known as RG59. We also use RG58, but it's not that common. RG59 is the most common cable in CCTV application. This cable is a weatherproof cable. If it's installed correctly, you could run them outside. You don't need any extra protection. The cable takes the signal through the inner core, which is a copper solid core. So this is a picture of a coax cable, all known as RG59. Now you can see that the inner core is what takes the video signals. The outer shield works as ground. Also, it gives protection against electromagnetic interference and other types of noise. Before we start learning about coax cable, we also need to know about BNC connectors. So what is a BNC connector? A BNC connector is what we use with coax cable. So if you want to connect a camera to a coax cable, the interface of a camera is BNC female, then you need to do a BNC male. So BNC connector comes in 2 different types, 50 ohm and 75 ohms. Depends on your cable impedance, you have to select the right one. For CCTV application, we normally go with 75 ohm BNC connectors. So this is a picture of a BNC connector. This is a very common BNC connector that we use in CCTV application. You also find different types of BNC connectors. This is a 3-piece BNC connector. So I've listed some of the most common type of BNC connectors, starting from 3-piece BNC connector, 2-piece BNC connector, and twist-on BNC connector. I've got pictures in upcoming slides, so you could see the difference between these different types of BNC connectors. This is a twist-on BNC connectors. It's easy to install. You don't need any crimp tool. Simply twist the connectors to the cable. The downside or flip side of using this cable is that once you connect it, you may ground it. Your shield may touch the inner core. So that can give you wrong grounding, and it can also create problem with your video signal. So you have to be absolutely clear that your inner core is not connected to the shield. Also, when you run cables or when you twist the cable, twist the connectors over the cable, you have to make sure they're not touching each other. So that itself is a difficult task. But again, the good thing about these types of BNC connectors, they're fairly easy to install. Now this is 3-piece BNC connectors, the most common one. They're very cost-effective BNC connectors. They cost in the region of 25 pence to 35 pence. I'm talking about British pounds. They normally come as 100 pieces in a drum, in a bottle, and then it'll cost you around 25 to 35 pence. Then you've got two-piece BNC. So you've got the main BNC body, and you'll also have a sleeve on the other side. So let's see how to connect a BNC to a coax cable. So to begin with, what are the tools that you require? So there are three main tools that you would need to do this termination. The first one is BNC crimp, side cutter, and coax cable stripper. You could buy them as a kit. There are a lot of mail order companies and online portals where you could buy the kit. It will cost you in the region of 35 to 40 pounds. So you get a coax crimp, side cutter, and a coax stripper. So let's see how to connect or how to terminate a BNC connector. Step 1, strip the coax cable using the coax stripper. So when you buy the coax stripper, make sure you buy the one with 3 blades. Now you can see on the third picture here, this one has 3 blades, which cuts in three different depths. The blades are as default set for the correct setting, but if you want to change them, you could change it. So what is the right length to strip? The stripper itself will have a diagram, which will then tell you, for example, this one, it tells you the correct length. It's in millimeter, 8 and 4. So you're looking at 8 millimeter, 4 millimeter. So in total, 12 millimeter. But you also have, let me go back to the slide. You also have a little bit of copper sticking out. So I would say 9 millimeter is the right length. When you place your cable, you could make sure that a little bit of your cable, perhaps 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter, is sticking out. So that would be the correct length to strip the cable. So when you place the cable, you've got to make sure you put the cable, you see the second picture in this way. This is the correct way to put the cable. If you put it the other way around, what will happen is the first plate will cut the whole thing. You'll end up having just inner core. So you will not have the 3 different depth of cutting. So once you strip the cable, this is what you're going to get. Now in the picture, you'll see the first plate is taken the whole thing out, and it left the inner core. So just the copper inner core is exposed, and the rest is taken out. The second blade, you just taken everything, but you still see the plastic cover. The third one has taken just the sleeve, has not cut the shield, so you can still see the shield, but just the sleeve is gone. So you have these 3 blades doing their job here. So once you have the correct finish, you first send the ring. So in this demo, in this section, I'm just showing you 3-piece BNC. I'm not showing you anything to do with twist on or 2-piece BNC. Just we're talking about 3-piece BNC. All right, coming back here, the first thing to do is to send the barrel, or known as ring, the silver one that goes on top of it. Just send them all the way in. Then put the pin. And once you put the pin, you need to crimp the pin. And that's very important. So when you buy your BNC crimp, make sure it has the correct crimping tool to crimp the pin. Let me show you. So this one, you see that smaller one, that can crimp the pin. So once the pin is inserted into the copper, you just crimp it. Then you send the body BNC on top of it. Then you hear a click sound, and that tells you the pin has you clamp the pin with the BNC connector. Now you can also see the copper shield touching the outer side of the BNC. Now this works as ground, so it's quite important that you have enough shield that will then make a contact with the BNC, the outer side of the BNC. So now let's bring the barrel or the ring back. So that will then cover the shield, copper shield. Now this is almost done, but you need now crimp this one. So when you have a crimp tool, just if you're not sure which size to use, go with the bigger one. Eventually you find the right size. If you go with the smaller one, you may squash the whole thing. So once I crimped, you can now see the difference here. It's got crimped here. That's the end of it. Now, let's look at what are the advantages and disadvantages of using a coax cable. So the advantage, it's quite cost effective. A 200-meter drum would cost you around 40 to 45 pounds in the UK. It has sufficient frequency range to support multiple channels. And also coax cables normally has lower error rates because it's fairly well protected through the shield. It works very good with the interference, electromagnetic interference or noise. And if properly installed, it can be installed outside. You don't need any protection. It's weatherproof cable. However, I would advise you to use a conduit because it doesn't give you any protection against physical abuse. Disadvantages. The maximum distance you could run this cable, if it's a color video footage, 100 meters, I would say. In some cases, you may not get 100 meters. It all depends on how you run the cable. So if you got more twist or if you're going against the gravity, you may lose more. So you may end up having only 60 meters. You can't use them with IP cameras. That's another disadvantage. As we use a lot of IP cameras nowadays, coax cables are not the best or something that it's not compatible with IP cameras. And when you run cables, they're a bit thicker cables. So if you've got like 16 cameras, you're going to have a chunk of cable coming out from ceiling. So you need to now protect them with a bigger trunking. So you will find it a bit difficult to conceal the cable. So that's, again, can be one of the disadvantages of using coax cable. And most of the time you will find them in black colors. So that is quite obvious if you're running them against a ceiling which is white or a wall which is white. All right, let's look at Ethernet cables or Cat5 cable. Now, the reason I call Cat5 cables because that's the common term that we use to refer to network cables, but then you also find Cat6, Cat7, so on. So Ethernet cable is a network cable. We also call them twisted pairs. So you've got 4 pairs, they're all twisted together, but they have different twist level, depends on what type of cable that you're using. Normally we use RJ45 connectors to connect an Ethernet cable or Cat5 cable. So what are different types of network cables that you will find in the market? You got FTP, UTP, UUTP, and FUTP. So what are these FTP, FUTP, and UUTP? FTP is no overall shielding. So there's no shield or with just a screen with twisted pairs. UTP, it's got overall foil shield with unscreened. UTP's cable is not shielded at all. We call it unshielded twisted pairs, and so we call it UTP. STP is shielded twisted pairs. But if you're using this for CCTV installation, it is advisable that you use a shielded cable, and if it's possible, screen would be best. So just to give you more idea about shielded and unshielded, or FTP and UTP. Now, if you see that it's got a screen, but it's protecting all the cables, it's got a separator. then you got the 4 different twisted pairs. Whereas if you find this picture, you have different screening for different pairs. So the pairs are well protected within the sleeve. So we call it FUTP. So let's start doing a network cable termination. To begin, you got to have the tools. So these are the tools I would recommend you to buy. Cat5 stripper. That also comes with the yellow stripper, the smaller one. Then you can buy a pouch tool or punch tool, keystone. You also can buy a tester. Okay, let's prepare the cable first. So I've got a Cat5 cable here. So when you want to strip this cable, there are 2 things you could do. You could just strip a little bit of the sleeve. Then if you find a nylon, then you can use the nylon to strip the rest. By doing it, you may not damage any cables that are inside. If you use a normal side cutter, there are chances that you may damage the cable inside. Or you could use the correct network cable crimping tool, which will have a blade and it's got the right level, so you can now strip the cable. So I'm using the network cable stripper here. Now here I got a blade here and I've got the correct size here, so I can strip the cable without damaging the inner cores. So when I strip, I need at least 1 or 1.5 inch. Now don't worry too much about the connectors size and the size that you need to strip. The connectors are around 10 centimeters. The reason I'm asking you to do 1 or 1.5 inch is that you can easily separate or untwist the pairs. If you just do 10 centimeters, you then struggle. Can now see that? I've got the twisted pairs and I've untwisted them. Right, so I'm going to put them back in a different order. So what we use in the UK, we call TIA 568B, where it starts from white orange. In certain part of the world, they use TIA 568A, where it starts from white green. So white orange on my left hand side. Then I've got orange. Then I've got solid green. Then I've got solid blue, white blue. Then I've got solid green. Sorry, the first one is white orange. Then I've got orange. Then I've got white green. Then I've got solid blue. Then I've got white blue. Then I've got solid green. Then white, brown, and brown. So when I cut these cables, the length that I'm looking at is about 10 centimeters. But when you cut the cable, make sure that you use the correct tool. Don't use any pliers because that would not cut them in straight. So you're going to struggle them when you connect them or when you insert the Cat5 or RJ45 connector. Then I'll put the connector on top of it. Now you can see that since I've got the 10 centimeters, each cables have gone into the dedicated mini tunnel of the RJ45 connector. Also, I have the sleeve that has gone fairly inside the connector. So when I crimp it, it's going to have a firm grip. So then I'll use the same crimp tool to crimp it. And that's the job done. So what are differences between the coax cable and the Ethernet cable? The Ethernet cables are standard wires formed with twisted pairs contained within a main outer jacket. Each pairing is necessary to get the signal from point to point. So with the Ethernet cables, you have to make sure all 8 pairs are connected. So it's so important. Coax cable, on the other hand, which is like use a single solid core, 18 gig center conductor. Surround this conductor is a white plastic dielectric sheet. So it can sometimes come in copper shield or aluminium shield. So if it's aluminium shield, you often see a screen, but if it's a copper, you don't see it. But I would advise if you can get copper, it's the best. Right, so if I put them on a table and see the difference between these two cables and compare them with CCTV application, I see with the coax cable, they're very cost effective. They're not very expensive cable to use. And also, if it's properly constructed, it can be used as a weatherproof cable or weather resistant cable. And the shield gives you extra protections over electromagnetic interference or any extra noise or additional outside noise. On the other hand, with the Ethernet cables, they can go for a long distance. So if you're using Ethernet cable for CCTV application, for color video, you could go up to 300 meters, which is a fairly long distance. On the other side, with the coax cable, you can only go up to 100 meters. So there's a huge difference. I'm not talking about any high definition cameras. So if it's a high definition camera with a normal coax cable, you can go up to 500 meters. But in this table, I'm not talking about any high definition camera. So I'm talking about the analog camera and the IP camera or the Ethernet cameras. The other advantage, you could run power, video, data all in one. You can use PoE cameras. So it can give you the flexibility of running different things in one cable. And they're very thin cable, so compared with coax cable. So if you take 16 of Cat5 cable, and if you compare them to 16 of coax cable, you'll see they're much thinner than the coax cable. So it's easy to conceal the cables. That's another advantage. So that's the end of it. Thanks a lot for listening to me. I hope you enjoy this webinar. I'm looking forward to bring more webinars to you. So please stay tuned to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and share it in your social media pages. Also, we have 2 websites that you could get more information from the website. You could visit the website. You also find a lot of tutorials in our website. Our main website is www.cctvdvrsystem.co.uk. We also have a new website that we launched recently, which is www.learninstallation.co.uk. This website gives you a number of online courses where you can get them for a very reasonable price. Gives you more information about how CCTV installation, alarm installation, or access control is done. All the courses comes with well-recognized certificates. So if you want more information about these courses and the certificate level, please visit our website or give us a call. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I'm ready to take any questions. So if you are connected to us through Google Talk, Hangout, please, you could now type your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer